and welcome to the lesson number 2 of Wave Optics Diffraction of Physics KS 201. In this particular lecture, we are going to cover the course outcome number 1 to 1.4, which is Relate Physical Optics with its application in optical devices. In this lecture, we are going to cover Fraunhofer diffraction due to single slit and the expression for width of its central maxima. So diffraction due to single slit is basically an interference pattern which is obtained on the screen whenever the light passes through a single slit, and as per the conditions of diffraction, the width of the slit must be of the order of the wavelength which is used for the purpose of diffraction. So in this particular figure, we have considered a slit AB of width E, where E is of the order of the wavelength, and let a plane wavefront of monochromatic light of wavelength lambda is incident on the slit. Because this particular diffraction is basically of a Fraunhofer type, so the type of the incident wavefront must be plane. Let the diffracted light be focused by means of a convex lens on the screen. Because lenses are mandatory in Fraunhofer diffraction, there is one lens between the slit and the source, which is not shown in this particular figure, and there must be one lens between the slit and the screen, so that all the diffracted rays will be focused again on the screen to get a desired pattern. So there is a lens which is basically placed in between the slit and the screen, and all the diffracted rays are focused at different points. All the rays which are undiffracted will be focused at the point P0, and all the rays which are diffracted at an angle of theta degree in the upward direction are basically focused at P1. Now, according to Huygens Fresnel theory, every point of the wavefront in the plane of the slit is a source of secondary wavelet. So any particle lying in between this point A and B is behaving like a secondary source. The secondary wavelets traveling normally to the slit, that is in the direction perpendicular to the slit, will be focused again at point P0 with the help of this particular lens. This P0 is a bright central image. The secondary wavelets traveling at any angle other than that plane direction are focused at the point P1 on the screen, and similarly on other points up and down on both sides of the central maximum. The intensity at a point P1 is either minimum or maximum and depends upon the path difference between the secondary waves originating from the corresponding points of the wavefront. Now in interference, we have already derived the expression that if your path difference is an even multiple of lambda by 2, then it is basically a condition of maxima, and if your path difference is an even multiple of lambda by odd multiple of lambda by 2, it is a condition of minima. So in both the cases, there are multiple secondary wavelets coming from different points, and if their path differences are even multiple, they will constitute a maxima. Otherwise, if their path differences are an odd multiple of lambda by 2, they will create a minimum. Now in order to find the path difference between the two extreme rays, we can draw a perpendicular in this particular figure from the point A on this particular lowest ray, which is intersecting this particular ray at the point C. So by drawing a perpendicular from point A on this particular line, we will get this additional distance, which is BC, and this is basically the required path difference between the two extreme rays originating from the topmost of the slit A and the bottommost of the slit point B. So the path difference between both these rays is basically represented by delta, which is BC, and BC can also be expressed in terms of AB sine theta, where AB is the width of the slit and it is represented by small e. Now any path difference can be easily converted into phase difference, and if the path difference is delta, the corresponding phase difference can be expressed in terms of 2 pi by lambda into path difference. So I can easily write this effective phase difference as 2 pi by lambda into path difference, and because we are considering that the slit consists of n number of particles, where every particle is behaving like a secondary wavelet, so taking n as a large number, I can find out the successive phase difference between individual secondary wavelets. So because my maximum phase difference between the two extreme rays will be equal to phi, which is 2 pi by lambda into delta, my individual phase difference between any of the two consecutive points will be delta, where which is 1 by n times of the maximum phase difference. So delta is 1 upon n, 2 pi by lambda into E sine theta. Then the resultant amplitude R is calculated by using the method of vector addition of amplitudes. If there are n number of vectors which are inclined successively at an angle of delta with respect to each other, then the resultant of all such vectors can be obtained with the help of polygon method, which we have already discussed multiple times in the class. and in this particular case we can divide every vector into its x component as well as along its y component, and the resultant of all x component will finally give you a resultant x component, and the addition of all the y components will give you resultant y component. So in this particular case, if you recombine both the x and the y components, you will get the resultant amplitude at that particular point. In simplicity, you can say that r is basically represented in terms of delta, and it is a sine n delta by 2 upon sine delta by 2. So this is basically a general expression which is basically obtained by adding n number of vectors, each of equal amplitude a, as well as having a successive phase difference of delta. So the resultant amplitude at the center of the screen at any point p is a sine n delta by 2 upon sine delta by 2. Now because the value of delta is already obtained and the value of delta is 2 pi by lambda into e sine theta, I can easily substitute the value of delta in this particular expression, and I will get a value of r which is a sine pi e sine theta upon lambda upon sine n pi e sine theta upon lambda. In this particular expression, for making this expression a little bit simpler, we can take a constant alpha, and the value of alpha must be taken as pi e sine theta upon lambda. So my expression will now reduce to a new expression which is capital R is equals to a sine alpha upon sine alpha by n, where alpha is basically a constant and the value of alpha is pi e sine theta upon lambda. Now by using this particular expression, I can find out the values of maxima and minima. So in this particular expression, capital R is equals to a sine alpha upon alpha by n, but we know that we have already considered n as the number of secondary wavelets originating between point A and point B, and we have taken it large. So alpha by n is basically a small number, and when alpha by n is a small number, with the help of trigonometry we can easily say that for smaller angles the value of sine theta is numerically equal to theta. So the value of sine alpha by n is as good as alpha by n. So if you place sine alpha by n as alpha by n in the earlier expression, then you will get an expression as r is equals to a sine alpha upon alpha by n, and after rearranging this particular expression you will get a value of r which is small n times of small a into sine alpha by alpha, where small a is the amplitude of the individual wave, n is the number of particles which are assumed in between point A and B, alpha is the constant which is pi e sine theta upon lambda. Now you can still further simplify this particular expression by taking capital A as the new constant, where the value of capital A is n times of small a. So capital R, which is the resultant amplitude at the point P1, is a sine alpha upon alpha. Now as per the wave theory, the intensity at any point in this particular wave is directly proportional to square of its amplitude. So I is directly proportional to r square, and the intensity expression for intensity distribution in diffraction due to single slit can be expressed in terms of I is equals to a square sine square alpha upon alpha square. Now based on this particular expression, I can find out the conditions for central maxima, because if I am dealing in central maxima, my aim is to maximize the intensity at that particular point, and intensity can only be maximized when the value of r is maximum. So if you want to find the conditions of central maxima, you have to maximize the value of r, and the value of r here is a sine alpha upon alpha, and in general it is assumed that this particular value will be maximum when you take alpha as 0, because when I take alpha as 0 it will tend towards infinity, and when the value of alpha is equals to 0, then pi e sine theta upon lambda must be equal to 0, and when pi e sine theta upon lambda is 0, I can easily say that sine theta must be 0, and when I take sine theta is equals to 0, then theta must be 0 degree. This condition theta is equals to 0 means that this maximum is formed by the secondary wavelets which travel normally to the slit along OP naught and focus at P naught. This maximum is known as principal maximum and sometimes termed as central maximum also, and the intensity of the principal maxima can be obtained by putting the maximum value of r, which is r max. But in this particular case, if I put alpha is equals to 0, where sine alpha will also become 0, I will get a indeterminate value. So I am calculating the value of r max with the help of calculus method, which is L'Hospital's rule, and I am applying a limit where alpha is tending towards 0. A sine alpha by alpha will be as good as a sine alpha tends towards 0 sine alpha by alpha, and the value of sine alpha by alpha for a limit tending towards 0 with the help of L'Hospital's rule, I will get a value of 1. So my R max in this particular case is nothing, it is capital A into 1, which is as good as A, and my I max, it is not I square max, it is I max, and I max is R square max, which is A square. So intensity at this particular central maxima will be square of its amplitude. Now, because the central maxima is obtained for a value of alpha is equals to 0 and it is formed exactly at the center of the screen, so that I can easily also find out the conditions for primary minima, which corresponds to a value of intensity 0. And if you want to minimize the value of intensity, your R must be minimum, and the minimum value of R can be obtained as 0 if I put sin alpha is equals to 0. So the conditions of primary minima can be obtained by taking R is equals to minimum, which is 0, and you can have to put sin alpha is equals to 0, but you can only take all those values of alpha is equals to 0 for which sin alpha is equals to 0, other than alpha is equals to 0, because alpha is equals to 0 corresponds to the conditions of central maxima. So if I want sin alpha is equals to 0, my alpha must be plus minus of pi plus minus of 2 pi, or it is an integral multiple of plus minus of pi. So now alpha is plus minus of n pi is the condition of primary minima, and because alpha is pi e sin theta upon lambda, I can directly write it as pi e sin theta upon lambda must be equals to plus minus of n pi, and by rearranging all these particular terms, you will get e sin theta is equals to plus minus of n lambda, where n can take any integral value, but it cannot take a value of 0, because if you put n is equals to 0, you will get a value of alpha is equals to 0, which is the condition of central maximum. So this expression is valid for conditions for primary minima for all values of n, but not 0. In the above equation, n is equal to 0 is not applicable because corresponding to the principal maximum. Therefore, the positions according to equation are on the either side of the principal maximum. That means this mathematical expression shows that the values of alpha are plus minus of pi, plus minus of 2 pi, and plus minus of 3 pi, and so on. So there are principal minima on left side also as well as the right side also. At the same time, there is not only one central maxima, but there are some other maxima also, and intensity is basically given by a square r sin square alpha upon alpha square. So in addition to principal maxima at alpha is equals to 0, there are weak secondary maxima between minima positions. The positions of these secondary maxima can be obtained with the rule for finding maxima and minima of a given function in calculus, and because we know that to maximize or minimize a particular function, we have to differentiate the function with respect to the variable and put the value equal to 0. In our case, the value of I is a function of alpha, so I must be a square sin square alpha upon alpha square, and if you want to find the maxima or minima of this particular expression, then you have to differentiate this expression with respect to alpha and put the value equals to 0. So now we are differentiating this expression of I, which is a square sin square alpha upon alpha square, with respect to alpha, and then putting it equal to 0. So if I differentiate this, I have to differentiate the a square sin square alpha upon alpha square with respect to alpha, and in this particular case I will get an expression which is 2a square sin alpha upon alpha into 2 into alpha cos alpha minus sin alpha upon alpha square is equals to 0. Now this particular expression can be 0 if I can take a is equals to 0 or sin alpha is equals to 0, but both in this particular case are not 0, because a is the amplitude, which is not 0 in this particular case. So a square is not equal to 0, and sin alpha is equals to 0 is the condition for primary minima in this particular interference in the single slit diffraction pattern. So we cannot take sin alpha is equals to 0 also. So out of the three conditions, two are not possible due to different reasons. So the only possibility left is a cos alpha, alpha cos alpha minus sin alpha must be equals to 0. And if I rearrange all these particular terms, I will get an expression which says that alpha must be equals to tan alpha. So with the help of calculus, we have obtained a condition for secondary maxima, or you can say a condition of maxima, and it says that all those particular values of alpha for which the value of alpha and tan alpha are exactly the same, you will get a maxima. The value of alpha satisfying the above equation can be obtained graphically by plotting two different curves. The first curve is y is equals to alpha, and the second curve is y is equals to tan alpha. And when the graphs are plotted, they will intersect each other at multiple different points. The points of intersection of the two curves gives the value of alpha which satisfies this particular equation. So if I wish to plot a graph of y is equals to alpha, it must be a straight line curve passing through the origin at an angle of 45 degree. And if I want to plot the graph of tan alpha, then this particular graph is to be plotted in different range. The ranges are minus pi by 2 to plus pi by 2, plus pi by 2 to plus 3 pi by 2, plus 3 pi by 2 plus 5 by 2, and similarly on the other side also. So I have plotted multiple curves in different ranges of alpha, and then a single line showing y is equals to alpha. Now the intersection of this straight line with these curves will give you the value of alpha, where the value of alpha and tan alpha are exactly the same, and the values of intersection by after approximation are basically coming as alpha is equals to 0, alpha is equals to plus minus of 3 pi by 2. It is not exactly 3 pi by 2, but the approximation is 3 pi by 2, 5 pi by 2, 7 pi by 2, or in general I can say that any odd multiple of pi by 2. Now in this particular case we are getting one condition, which is alpha is equals to 0, and because alpha is equals to 0 corresponds to central maxima, and we also know that central maxima is also a type of maxima, that's why this is not a wrong condition, but we have to eliminate this condition in order to get the conditions for other secondary maxima. So alpha is equals to 0 gives principal maxima. Substituting the values of in this particular equation, which is I is equals to r square a square sin square alpha upon alpha square. If you want the intensity of the first secondary maxima, you have to put alpha is equals to 3 pi by 2. So I1 is a square sine 3 pi by 2 upon 3 pi by 2 whole square, which is a square by 22. I2 is obtained by putting the value of alpha as 5 pi by 2. So it is coming as I2 is equals to a square by 62. And finally the value of I3 is a square by 125. With the help of these three intensity expressions, I can easily say that the intensity of the central maxima, which is a square, is the highest, and the intensity of the secondary maxima, which is I1, I2 and I3, are basically decreasing. So if I plot the intensity variation curve, then I can easily show that the intensity of the central maxima is the most, and on both sides of the central maxima there are secondary maximas of decreasing intensity, and they are symmetrically placed on both sides of the central maxima along with primary minima. The primary minima are obtained at pi, 2 pi, 3 pi and so on, whereas secondary maxima is obtained at 3 pi by 2, 5 pi by 2, 7 pi by 2 and so on, and the value of central maxima is alpha is equals to 0, and it is formed exactly at the center of the screen for all the rays for which theta is equals to 0 degree, and theta is equals to 0 degree corresponds to all the rays which are undifracted or going perpendicular to the slit. Now from this particular expression I can easily show that the central maxima is formed in between the first minima on the left side and first minima on the right side. So the width of the central maxima can be obtained by finding the angle at which the primary maxima of the first order is formed. So the central maxima is formed in between two primary minima of first order on both sides. Now conditions for first minima on both sides can be expressed as E sin theta is equals to plus minus of 1 lambda, and then you can obtain the value of sin theta from this particular expression, which is sin theta is plus minus of lambda by E. And because the diffraction pattern is very condensed, the value of sin theta is very small, and for smaller angles I can substitute sin theta as theta. So my theta for this particular first minima on any of the sides will be lambda by E. Now if x represents the distance of the first minimum and d is the distance between the slit and the screen, then I can also write theta is equals to x by lambda by applying a geometrical approximation, which says that the angle must be arc upon radius. So treating x as the arc and d is the radius, I can write angle theta as x by d also, and because x is the position of the first minima from the center on the left side or on any of the one side, so the width of the central maxima is the double of this, so w is 2 times of x, and this can be expressed in terms of 2d lambda by e. In general, if you want to write the equation in terms of f, you can make one more approximation and then replace capital D by f. So this is the width of the central maxima in a single slit diffraction pattern, and single slit diffraction is basically obtained with the help of a plane wavefront. That's why it is basically termed as a Fraunhofer diffraction due to single slit. This is all for today's class. For tomorrow we will in the next class we will discuss a double slit diffraction as well as the N slit diffraction along with the properties of the grating. Thank you.